now it's saying it's connected. I just wanted to check and make sure that all the audio levels are good before I use my mouth to say words. So if y'all could just check in, give me a little comment, tell me you're amazing, or whatever you want to say, that would be awesome. Let me know if the music sounded good, it's not deafening. And then we will be starting so shortly. Hey there, Astrid. Good to have ya. So anyways, I just wanted to plug designer Dennis Cortez for this music, also known as Cordio, C-O-R-D-I-O. He has made this music and we're streaming it and it's wonderful and I love it and I think it fits, works out well for this stream. Welcome to Build It in Figma. I'm Raji King. I'm a designer advocate at Figma, and I wanted to go ahead and bring you into the last episode of this, Build It in Figma. So we're doing these in series. The series are going to be 3 each, and this is our 3rd one. So you can always go back and look at previous videos to see how we did what we've done. We've done some pretty fun stuff. So anyways, just to give everyone a real quick catch up, and I will be really quick. Here's kind of our style guide. Now, it's not like a proper style guide. I'm not even sure if I know how to do a proper style guide, but I got some photos that are just some good juju to look at here. I've got some inspiration, which is kind of like an Art Deco-ish style. We've also made a lot of really interesting things, and by a lot, I mean just a little, because it's a pretty small app. So anyways, we've got this idea of a auto-layouted bulleted line. We've also got this idea of a ordered list item. This is going to be for like recipe steps. Yes, we're building a cocktail recipe app. And so we've got this idea of multiple steps here. So it could be like 1, 2, 3, do this, do this, do that. We've also got like a media item, which is just a picture. And then we've got this idea of like a media card, something maybe we put text on it. I'm not sure where we're going to go with this design. So I just kind of put this out here. I've got a text input with like a little helper area on the right. I just called it a slot. It's hanging out on the right-hand side. We've got this button here, this button component that is all yummy looking and has that super fun Art Deco style. Yes, we're using gradients. Don't judge me. We're only using a few. We're using them sparingly, like Salt Bay, just a little bit of salt. The other thing that we've created is we've created some really fun icons. So I try to make these have a little bit of like an Art Deco-ish style. Now, not all of them are going to fit that. Sure, some just look like an icon with a gradient on them. But this little cocktail martini glass, I love, and it kind of symbolizes one of the cooler icons there. I thought this one was pretty fun. I made this today. This is like a back icon, but instead of just like a classic, we'll just go ahead and click in here and delete this out. Instead of something like that, I was like, hey, why don't we do something like that? How fun is that? We've also got the notion of a nav item, which has a label underneath it to make things just a bit more usable. And then we've got this nav bar here. So Hanul asked, can we have the Figma file? Yes, of course you can. You can have the Figma file. I will give it to you. I will put it on the Figma community when we're done with this stream. I'll go ahead and try to wrap it all up and make it look real nice and pretty so that everyone's ready. But yeah, of course you can have it. That's the idea here. And in subsequent Build It in Figma streams, we're really going to try to do that. We're going to try to give you something that you can go in and dig in. Like, Figma's wonderful because it's all in the cloud. It's a single source of truth. And the same file, like if I publish that file, everyone will see the same file. And it's wonderful because I can do something like just give you a link and boom, you have the file. It's all in the browser. It's amazing. It's highly performant. I think a lot of fears about Figma being in the browser is that it's not highly performant, but I've been designing in it for like 3.5 years and it's been amazing. Okay, I've got this header bar for a mobile app and it's got sort of like a left icon area, a left icon frame. It's got a right one and then it's got a centered title. You can dig these things apart later. These are all things that we've created before. We also have over here color styles. So we've created a lot of different color styles. And once again, by a lot, I mean just a little. We've got like a primary, a secondary color. We've got some accent colors. That accent is that gradient. We have a background. We have some colors, and these are these colors here that we're hoping to use throughout the app. I'm not sure if we really will. I'm kind of settling on a little bit more minimal. The idea is cocktails are these old ancient art, but they're getting refreshed. And the idea of the UI and the typography is old meets new. So we've got this sort of like more old-fashioned looking serif for a header, but we've got this body font circular, which is very modern and geometric. So we're trying to kind of juxtapose those two things together. All right, so let's step into the app. All right, so here's where I'm at today. Now, I wanted to create this like fun, vibrant color scheme. I wanted to have this photo here on the login screen. I've brought in a few different fields here. I'm thinking that primary color might be this green, like that's kind of like our action link color. So I'm toying around with that. I've got a sign-in button that's all beautiful and wonderful and looks Art Deco-y. Brian Smith asked, what's the font in the header? That is Wayfinder CF. Wayfinder CF. It's a cool one. My buddy Ryan at Dribble actually told me about it, and it is amazing. All right, so let's just kind of examine the state of where we're at. So previously, I was wanting this background color, and I wanted it to be like a little bit more old world feeling, but now this tan is starting to feel not as modern to me, and so I want to update it. The cool thing about this is I was experimenting in this white, but now I've got like this drink detail card. I've also got this background here. And the cool thing about using styles is that it's all linked to the same thing. So it's essentially like a variable, and once you change that variable, as long as things are linked to it, for instance, if I click on this drink detail frame, you can see it says on the house background. It is linked. I can unlink it here if I'd like to, or detach it. But I'd like to go ahead and edit this out. I don't think I'm going to do that tan color to this on the house background. And I can just click this little edit knob, and I can change this. And I'm going to change it to white. Now, the awesome thing that just happened is that everything updated. Now, I do have an on the house white color. I may use that. I might just want to know to use the color white for something. But I do have this notion of a background color as well. And you notice that when I did update that all of these updated. Everything is updated across the board. Let's go into the components. Let's double check that we didn't have any weird situations where that tan color is leaking through, and it's not. We can always go back to it, but let's just make sure that everything's bound up to that style. This header is actually on the house white. I don't want it to be bound to white. I want it to be bound to the background. Let's check that nav bar. Okay, this one's not bound at all. So if for some reason I was in this app screen and I changed this background to pink, you'll notice what's happening here. That this will stand out, and that's no good. Or if I change that background color back, it won't work. So let's just test changing the background color once again. Let's just say we went to red. You can see what's happening here. All the backgrounds are lighting up with the bound linked color. So we've got a little bit of work to do. This needs to be changed to the background. Let's go back to the components. And let's go here. I think we're pretty good now. Now we're gonna go back into our app. Now, one thing I wanted to share with you today is sometimes when you're in this creative mode and you know you have a lot of things to do, you might have to have a reminder list or a to-do list somewhere else. I really love, and I've just started using it, it's this new little plugin called To Do. If you just go onto the community, go here to the community, and you just type in To Do. And you go to plugins, you'll see right here, simple to-do list. Strangely, this one doesn't say it's installed. We're gonna install it again. All right, now let's come back to here. Now, if I right click and I go into plugins and I go to do, it should load up the to-do list, and boom, we have it. Now, I don't know why it didn't show that it was installed. There might be a bug in there somewhere, but you can see that it's right here. And this is my little list of to-dos. One thing that I like about some of the plugins is that they're utilizing this thing called a plugin relaunch API. A relaunch API, essentially, the plugin relaunch API, essentially attaches data to your document. And that way, if you'd like to go ahead and add a to-do list in here and you want to share this with somebody, because Figma is all about working with other people, they would see something over here that says install to do. Essentially, the plugin relaunch API tells your document, your Figma file, hey, there's a plugin that's used with this file. And so anyone that comes into that file after now will see that and go, oh, wow, I should use this with this. For instance, you may see something on, you may have heard this or seen this on Twitter. If you type in Catan, or if you type in Google Figma Catan, you'll see this file, this Figma Catan file here. And I am sure I have not downloaded it, but if I go to this playable in Figma, well, let's go ahead and launch this. You can see right here that this already has some information right here, roll 2 dice. So if I roll the 2 dice, it'll go ahead and roll them. So they were right here, boom, re-roll selected dice. This is a plugin by Tom Lowry. This plugin here also uses the Relaunch API. So that way you know what's attached to this. There's some functionality attached to this. You can actually create Figma games doing things like this. This is really rad as well. I feel like it's fun to highlight this Figma Catan file. In fact, I will go ahead and just go and get that for you because y'all probably want this so badly. So here we go. There's that Figma Catan file. You can get in there, see what I'm talking about with that to-do relaunch API thing. All right, now back to the cocktail app. All right, so I'll probably need a little bit of feedback from y'all. I would love to know what you guys think. All right, so one idea here, and I'm just kind of slapping around some stuff here. One thing we could do is just try to create like a list view like this. I think the photo's really important, especially if you want this to be like a real nice photography, really nice looking cocktails. They're so beautiful. We could do a list view like this, and I just kind of want to get a vote from you all whether or not we want to do something like that, or we want to do something a little bit more like this. So let's just say there's like a grid view, and you've got drinks like this, and you can just scroll through them. We also will need some kind of search as well. Hey, Shauna Lynn, good to have you in. Shauna's a very good friend of mine. Shauna's a very good friend of mine, and she also does streaming. She's an illustrator. I also want to point out, and you may have seen this, just kind of passing over, I do want to point this out. There's this brainstorming UI kit. Now, I loved this file because this thing is absolutely packed with amazing things. Like, I mean, let's just scroll this down. Like, this is one thing that I think maybe it's a little bit hard to tell about on the Figma community files that are shared, is oftentimes you see something like this and you think to yourself like, oh, this is maybe just like an iPhone mock-up. But it's not that, it's so much more. All of these assets, we've got icons, we've got like all kinds of things, and it's just great. And I was doing this today because I was just curious, just poking around in here, just seeing all these things. These are different types of menu screens. These are different types of like menus that you could have. This is like a slide out menu. This is like a slide down menu potentially. There's all kinds of great things, but it's just absolutely packed. Even from a standpoint of if you are not trying to like replicate this UI style, doesn't matter. Get in here. All of these things are like very smartly laid out. They're all components. For instance, if I go to this component and I go to the master component, I'll be dumped here on this little page, and it's so rad. And this is even giving me some inspiration too. Like maybe the cocktails could look like this. So I'm just gonna snag this little fella. I wanna go ahead and just share with you also so you can see the magic and witness it. All right, so let's go to brainstorming UI. Here it is. lots of downloads. This is by an awesome Figma designer named Rusmir, and I'm not even going to go for the last name because, actually I will, Arnautovic. He's got all kinds of great assets here, so I would absolutely suggest coming and checking these out. This brainstorming UI style, I believe it was this one here. I'll go ahead and just dump this one here for you to look at. So I was looking at this today. Very, very cool. Oh, there we go. Took a second to copy the link. I've got it. I've got it. All right. So I would love for you to be able to follow along if you want to and go into that file, duplicate it for yourself, check it out, witness the glory, love it, work with it. Okay, so we went back to what are we going to do? So do we do like this little listy grid thingy, or do we do a big grid? I actually just got like super inspired. I know this is a story. Hey, this is my app. I can make it how I want to. I kind of like the idea of maybe when you're taking a picture of your, so I'm thinking this, I'm not sure if it's true, but when you're taking a picture with your iPhone, and oftentimes when you're making a cocktail, I doubt that you're like breaking out your computer and like your DSLR or something like this. So my thought here is maybe what we do is we take inspiration from Rusmir's file here in this story graphic. And my thought with sort of the iPhone is that it could be more vertically oriented. Oftentimes a drink is in a taller glass. I get that it may not be all the time. Sometimes those whiskey glasses are a little shorter. But we're gonna go ahead and follow that for a little bit of style. So I am going to come in here, and this is the beauty of, I love saying this is the beauty. This is the beauty of building in Figma, is that we get to just, you can see me floundering and being exactly how you would be as a designer. All right, so we're gonna keep this and just kind of see how this might look and work. I'm gonna go ahead and turn on my grid here. That's a Control G. And for all of you that may want to see those keystrokes, let's just do that again. Control G here. Right, just 1 second. Okay, so now we have this grid on. It's just a single column, but it gives me an idea here. Now this is a stories view, and this is meant to be something like this here. We're not going to do that here. My drinks, well, actually, maybe we are. Okay, so here's a couple of ways that I'm thinking about the way that we can grid this out. Way number one would be something a little bit like this. So we expand these things out here, and we just grid them out this way. So let's just, we're just toying around a little bit, so don't judge my grittiness. Don't judge my grid issues. Okay, so it could be something a little bit like this. So this is one potential style. We have the list style. Let's just keep on working with this stuff. So let's take all these and just move them off. We're gonna go ahead and duplicate this. All right, here's another thought for us, little food for thought. We can see that Rusmir has made these very scalable, like he's really worked with those constraints in a really cool way, which I like. All right, so then another potential way of working with this is to do something like this. Now, you may be thinking, Raji, why are you just doing this? Like they can't see that there's something over there. It's a great thought. I'm glad that you thought it for yourself. My potential way of thinking on this is like, let's just take this header here, and we could potentially like, I'm thinking over here, I'm thinking, I need some votes on this, but I'm thinking let's just take a little bit of like Netflix inspiration, like recent cocktails, yeah. And maybe those don't even have to be within like ones that you favorited. Right now we're working on it, we're just working loosely, so bear with me as I don't line everything up. The next thing we could say is something like, well, I don't know, my favorites. And then we could break it out even further. I know that sand is not a cocktail for those that are just coming in. I know that's true. We'll work on that. The next thing that we could type in here is maybe, I don't know, maybe this is going to be like a tiki drinks, tropical cocktails, something like that. All right. All right, so here's sort of the ones in the running. And then the fourth way that we could do this is to do something more like this. And these may not extend Nope, they didn't really extend too well, and that's okay. We'll just take this as inspiration, just kind of get some ideas. This could literally just be a feed with a search bar above it. Pet wood, calm down a little bit there. I'll absolutely use auto layouts. Right now, I'm actually just throwing down some ideas very quickly just to see. Auto layout's pretty easy, of course. You can just take all three of these items, throw them into auto layout. Shift A will do that. If they're vertically stacked, it'll automatically sense that. And of course, if I want to use like base 8 spacing, I can type in 16 and it'll space it out easily. So I am going to just kind of poll the audience on this one and just see what we think would be a really good way to go about this. What do we think would be the best layout for this? And I think we all know, but I'm going to just wait for a second. Get my air conditioning working because it is overheating me in here. All right, so since we've had no responses, let me see here if maybe my chat's not coming up with YouTube. Hold on 1 second, please. All right. Here we go. I love it. All right. I love the hecklers. I love the hecklers. You can definitely knock me for not using auto layouts. I will be a teachable student by you as well. I promise this. Okay. So my initial thinking here is that this one is just, you have to be banking on amazing photography on this one. And it feels like there's not really any way to categorize them. It's just this long feed. Sure, it feels a little bit Instagram-ish, but it also just doesn't seem to me like this would work out very well in the long run. So yeah, there's just no categorization. There's no way to feel like I'm putting it into the right category. So that one's out. Thank you all for the votes. This one here is pretty interesting. I like that you can get a lot packed into the grid view here. People are saying B, and I'm wondering which one B is. This one here, I don't like how left heavy it feels. I'm just going to be honest. So I'm going to be done with this one. I think we all know where we're going. So it's really between this one and this one. And I like this one. I'm going to follow this little path here. We'll put this one up here just to kind of, just over here, just to see. All right, I'm going to turn off my grids. So I'm going to go ahead and Control G to turn them off. Astrid liked the last one. Shauna likes the big image one. The only thought I have on that is that with UGC, with user-generated content, like people are adding their own photos. I just don't think that the photos are going to be like that amazing. And so you're taking up a huge screen. What if they don't want to take a photo of it? What if they just want the recipe? Like how well does this do if you don't have one? So I'm kind of angling towards this one. Okay. All right, and I'm gonna go ahead and turn off those grids because I don't want that little red stripe affecting the way that I'm designing all the colors. All right, now it's time for auto layout. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take this feeds card thing. We'll go ahead and roll with it. Yeah, go ahead and roll with it. I'm gonna take this and I can go ahead, if I want to, I can copy it and paste it into components. But the other thing I can do is I can just go and move it to another page. So move to the page components. So I'll do that when I'm ready, but I want to keep it in line so I can see what's happening right here. I do this a lot just to see the context of the design, what I'm doing. This is great. It can have our avatar right there. Perfect. Let's see. All right. I don't know if time ago is that big of a deal. So we're just going to rip this out. We're going to rip that out of that component. We're going to move this down here. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to go bind this textile because that was in SF Pro, and we're going to go ahead and set it to the body text here. Actually, we're going to try the title text, and this may not work out very well. So go ahead and set it to the title text. And we will break that a bit. We're not going to have it that big. And we will see how well this works at, say, like maybe a 20-point font. I think it could work. Let's go get a few sample cocktail names. If any of you have any cocktail names, throw them at me. But let's see, old fashioned. I just want to see how this copy is going to work in here. Seems like it's okay. We could also end up, if it goes into multiple lines like that, we could do something like that, which I think looks pretty elegant. Now, one thing that we're noticing all of a sudden and off the bat here is the fact that when I did that second line, I just held Shift Enter to force the return. It's going down there. So what I'm going to do here, a French 75. All right, write some cocktail names down. If you have some great photography for that, just sling it in the chat and I will pick that up. Okay, so what we're going to want to do with this card is we're going to set this to a bottom alignment. So we'll go ahead and set it to left and to the bottom. And the way that we can see that this works is if we start expanding this card, it should do that, which is great. The other way that we should see that it works is if we do that Shift Enter, it should work. And the reason it's probably not working is that we don't have it also bottom aligned. Let's see if this works again. One last try. All right, we got a winner. All right, great work, Raji. Thanks, man. That was awesome. All right. Let's see what else Rusmir's done with this. So he's added a 60% stroke on the inside. That makes a lot of sense. You don't know if for some reason this is going to be all white photography or all not. I am going to add a different trick to this. This is something I learned when I did the redesign of Dribbble, and I like the effect, and I'm going to do it. This little image, we noticed one other thing about this is when this card scales, that image doesn't seem to be responding right. So let's just put that at the left and the top. Great. Now, let's just kind of play with it. Yeah, all right, I'm into it. Okay, now I don't know if it's that important that the person that did this is on here, but I think it could be. I think it really could be. I think it could be really cool because, like, especially if you're friending in this app, you might want to be like, hey, I know so-and-so, they're awesome, they make great drinks, I want to see what they've got, so let's keep it there. All right, now, all right, let's get in here. All right, let's go ahead and just throw in some images so I don't feel like I'm looking at sand all day. We're going to rename this component to, we're going to call it cocktail card. Great. And then, of course, these should all update over here in this left-hand sidebar. You see that they're updated to cocktail card. Awesome. All right, the other thing that we're going to have as a problem, let's just test this out. I'm going to add in a white fill. This is just going to test out for usability. And I'm going to turn off this image here. Now, Rusmir's also done a really great thing here, where he's also put a 30% black overlay on top of this. And that way, it keeps the text usable on top of it. Very smart move. Love it. But for now, we're just going to turn it off. And we've noticed that even with a white photo, it's not going to work. This white text is not going to work on top of it. So we're going to do a few things. One thing is we're going to get some more like usable photography, like photography that we might actually use in this app. Let's go ahead and use this one. This is interesting here because it's got like some white on the bottom. So I'm just going to come here, go to the fill, copy that fill just by clicking over here. I just want the fill. I don't necessarily want to copy the image object. I'm going to come back here to the app. All right. And I'm just going to paste it in. We can get rid of Rusmir's sand. Sorry, say bye to the sand. Another great trick here is if you want to adjust the crop, that's a very tall image, I can hold down Option and double click, and I can actually just go right to the crop UI. Okay. So we can see now how badly this white text is behaving. It's being a very bad boy. And so we want to change that. One technique, of course, would be to go back and turn on that 30% overlay. What I don't like about this is that I just feel like I just took all the pizzazz out of the image. All those beautiful colors are now just dark for the sake of the text. Now we could absolutely change this by just moving that text down here. But I really like this look. I like this appearance. I do think that we need to potentially like tighten up that line height there. All right, so I'm going to get rid of this. Say bye-bye to that. And instead, I'm going to do a linear gradient. Right now in the tool, there's not a way to just do a flip on that gradient, but there is a way to do this. So I can just kind of drag. All right, at least with this, I feel like some of the pizzazz is still there. At the top of the image, I've got like a bunch of that color showing through, and I like that quite a bit. I can also adjust this to maybe not take up the full part. Now, one thing you may notice about these gradients, if we dark them up, it can be pretty harsh. So here's a really interesting little tip for you, is that if you'd go out and look for easing gradient on the community, so in your plugins, just type in easing gradient. It's a plugin, and I hope there's going to be an update soon. It's this one here by Matan Kushner. What this does, and actually, I'll let it actually perfectly illustrate what it does. So before, you can see it's like this harsh line. It's because it's linear, so it's like a ramp, right? Imagine taking a skateboard down a ramp, and then as soon as you hit the bottom, it was just a straight line, and you would hit that bottom and bottom out. Since we're all professional skateboarders, I'm sure that we know this already. I didn't mean to teach too much on that. But on this one, it's not like a linear ramp, just like a triangle. It actually kind of slopes down, and that's using an easing here. So it's got this Bezier curve editor. Now, let me restate that. It has a Bezier curve function on it based off of what they believe is the most pleasing gradient. What I'm hoping comes out are these things here. The ability to kind of pull those Bezier handles to kind of get your own feel on that. But for now, we'll just use it to showcase that plugin. I'll go ahead and copy it for y'all and just paste it right in. All right, let's get on it. We've got a lot of work to do today. All right, so we're gonna rush through this pretty fast, but we're gonna go ahead and go to plugins here. And we're gonna go to easing gradient. Don't mind all my plugin mess over there, but you can see that it changed the quality of that gradient. And the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just rip that gradient out of there, and I'm gonna create something else in here. I am going to just draw a box. I think I'm gonna draw a box. Okay. Now this box is gonna sit on top of this image here. We'll go ahead and this cocktail card, I'm going to change up the anatomy of it a little bit. Instead of a 10 on the radius, we're just gonna get rid of that. And I'm just gonna get rid of all mention of radii. There we go. For now, I'm just gonna go with a flat. I know it's not pleasing, I know it's not, but right now I'm thinking this app has a lot of like hard lines, like old fashioned. I'm thinking it's not all curvature. I'm thinking it's an old meets new kind of an app. So we've got the curvature of the fonts, and I'm thinking with regards to the cards, maybe we just go like, we get daring and we go in the Wild West here and we just do 0 border radius. It's a wild thought, I know, but here we are making it. Okay, so the reason that I put this linear gradient in here is for a very good reason. If you actually look at the anatomy of this eased gradient, it's pretty friggin' wild. It's all over the place. Like, I am not gonna be able to edit this. And moreover, like, what if I wanted to change this color to like a brown or a white? I am going to be in designer hell. So what I'm gonna do here is show off a little technique that I learned. And I can just duplicate this rectangle, boom, right over here. Command D to duplicate, which I wish that it would duplicate. All right. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna put a solid fill on this. So boom, let's just get at it. I'm gonna move to my local colors. Let's just say we wanted to have a green overlay, who knows? And I'm gonna group these two things together. Yes, you're probably knowing exactly what I was gonna do. I'm gonna take this linear gradient and I'm gonna set it as the mask. Oh, that was amazing. Yeah, so what's cool about this is now I can actually use this easing gradient without actually having to like edit these colors, just because it is a transition from a transparent to a fully opaque value. It now can become a mask. So that's great. You can do the same trick with pings. Like you have an image like that, just put it underneath, make it the mask. So I'm gonna just call this the overlay. And I'm not sure how good that's going to look. It looks really good with this one, but we'll see. The other thing that we can do with this overlay is we can actually adjust opacity values to say like, oh no, we only want it to be like, we don't have to actually go into the linear gradient values for each one. Imagine that. Imagine how crazy that would get. Like I'm in here and I'm like, okay, I want to adjust each one. Or like even this one, right? I can adjust this one. That's so much easier. So I just don't want to mess with that eased gradient. Just let her be, let her be. All right. Now we're going to check out Rusmir's little effect here. All right, he's got this 60% stroke inside. I'm going to move this to a half of a pixel because I'm feeling very, actually, in fact, I don't even know. I'm designing live on the fly like a wild man. Okay, maybe we use this. Do we? I don't know. Do we use this accent mark and maybe put it at 2? Maybe we've got like a really opinionated app that's like it has that gradient on it. Or maybe there's some kind of association to another brand color that looks cool like that. All right, that was all cool. That was really fun, but it looked really ugly, and so I'm not going to do it. All right. And I have some beautiful piano music playing that I am not vibing with right now, so I'm just going to get away from that as fast as I humanly can. All right. All right, well, this is great. Let's go ahead and set these up now. So we've got this card. We can actually create a row if we want to create a row too. So we're going to go ahead and go Shift A on these. Just select them all. They're going to all go into a auto layout frame. You can see here. We're going to put 16 pixels. Keep everything 8, or keep everything base 8 because we're cool like that. Also, we're very smart designers, and that's why we do it, because we know that 8 divided by 2 is 4, and 4, you know, it's never a half pixel. Feels great. All right, we're gonna align these to the top. All right, so then the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take this header. I'm not sure if we're gonna use this. Let's just flip flop to the body here, and let's go to the body text. We made it brown, but the more I'm using that brown, I am hating it. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create this as a group here. This will also be auto layout. I'm going to Shift A to make that an auto layout. I'm going to wrap it essentially. So I might even make this thing a component just because I am very smart. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to turn it into a component. I'm going to call this a row. Why not a cocktail row? All right, so we're going to take this sucker. We're going to bring it in. We're just going to duplicate these things down like this. Yes, you might be asking, Raji, are you going to turn those also into an auto layout? Yeah, oh yeah, I am. All right, so then this is gonna be your cocktails. I don't frame name a lot, but you know, if that's your style, cool, do it. I'm gonna make these, we're gonna toy around with some values. 16 pixels. The problem with 16 for me here is that the gap between, and I learned this a long time ago, let's just even make this, let's make this even more obvious. Look at this here. This is what Hulu app struggles with a little bit, in my opinion, is the fact that each of these rows, I don't know, is this above? Is this related to these? Or is this related to this? And the effect gets even more dramatized when you're like this. You're a little scrolled up that screen and you're going, wait, okay, these are the, no, wait, okay, let's say these are tiki drinks. It's just not working for me. So, what I'm going to do is just make the spacing more for each one. The more I dramatize that spacing and space it out further, the more this design becomes apparent by proximity that this title is related to this. And I want to make sure it's usable. Man, I don't want people to get the wrong idea here. They need to get their cocktails. They need to get them now. All right, so we've made this row. The cool thing about making this a component is I can come in here now and I can go, boom, duplicate, and look, this whole thing got wider. If I turn this on or turn off clip content, you can see that it's going way over there. All right. All right, so let's see what else we can do here. I'm thinking when this scrolls down here, I've got a little bit of an issue here with my nav. I want to extend it and make it a little bit taller. So I'm just going to, instead of, let's back up a bit. Instead of just pulling it up, looks like it was made in a smart way, so I don't need to worry about it. All right, so moving on, I'd really like to be able to showcase some prototyping. So I think we're gonna go ahead and start getting over there. We can move these components, but I don't wanna move them just yet. What I'd like to do is have this idea of a card, boom, and this little guy goes, as soon as you drag it over the frame, actually let's just put this frame on top, that it kind of drags up like that, right? Now auto layout, screwing everything up. If I want to keep this and I kind of simulate this going up and down without it going into the frame, I can always actually hold spacebar as I'm over this, and you can kind of see that it won't go into the frame, which is great. So this is the effect that I want. I want to be able to like tap a cocktail and whoop, this little sucker goes up. This is not actually an iOS screen. This is actually an auto layout framed frame. All right. So let's go ahead and just test that prototype out. I wanted to teach some of that prototyping ability in this little fun session. All right. So I'm going to try to just make this the same width as this. And I can just do that by aligning the frames here and then doing this. Some of these things are probably responding poorly. We can always work on that in a bit. Try to make sure that we've got our grid set up right. We can even take this little frame here. This is actually a component, but we can actually put a grid on it if we'd like to. All right. So I'm just going to take this drink detail, put it right up here. Oh, my bad. Put that right up here. That's another component. Sometimes I'll just put them on the left or right, whatever. Just keep them far enough away from your design. But I want to keep them around so that I can see them. Mr. Steven just said, I use a plugin called Component Utilities to create a master component from the selected layer. That is a great idea. I love that, Mr. Steven. If you would plug that, that's awesome. I find I'm always in this situation where I'm designing in the context, and I don't want to lose that context. I want to see the spacing and the elements around it, but then I end up getting to this weird ass place where all of a sudden I'm pulling the master out and then bringing, it's weird. It's weird. Okay, so let's just check our to-dos real quick and see where we're at. All right, so what have we done? Okay, we did a drink card. Cool. Drink list item. Sure. A drink detail view. It looks like we're pretty close there. We could spend more time on this, but I'm going to go ahead and just say this is done for now. What else do we want to do? Oh, drink prototype transition. Awesome. All right, let's get to it. All right, so this should be a pretty easy one for us all. If I go to the prototype tab here, I can just double click on in to the object that I want. And let's say it's this one here. I can just drag that handle right on out to this instance, and I can put a behavior on that. So my behavior for this here is going to be like on tap. We don't want to navigate to it. What we want to do is open it in an overlay. We want it to slide up. Now we haven't designed the little handle thing on top to kind of give you the affordance to pull down, but I love that pattern in iOS where you tap it, it flicks up, and then you can just flick down, flick up, flick down, as opposed to the back button thing. I know that you can always slide left, you can always like slide back and forth, but I wanted to try this out. So we're gonna go ahead and do something called an on tap open overlay. And so it's gonna open this one. And what we can do is say, we're gonna go ahead and do manual. So if we wanted to place the overlay manually, the great thing is that we can actually do this like this. We can pull it up like this. How far up do we want it to go? We can also put a background overlay. We want to dim this out a little bit because what's happening here, if we click this prototype line, we can see that once we hit play on this thing, what if this thing went up this high? Let's go ahead and just test this out. All right, so we're going to tap that and we can see that it just opened up. Now we have no affordance to know that it's there. We also don't know that this header is actually behind it, which it is, and this cocktail is over it. So there's just a lot of weird issues with what I just designed there. So what we can also do is put add background behind overlay, and we can put it to a color. Now let's go ahead and we're kind of digging this green color, so let's give that a try. And let's go ahead and dim it out just a bit. And let's also say, sure, if you click outside or tap outside, we can go ahead and just close when you do that. So let's look at this now. This is what happens here. When you click this, oh, it kind of dims this out. So you can kind of see a clear delineation. Sure, we can actually test this on the fly. Maybe we want to ramp that up. Come on back to the prototype tab. Cool. Maybe the green's not good. Maybe they think, I don't know, maybe people are used to like that darker black color. We can work on that later, but we've got it working now. Now what we'd like to do is actually tell the overlay here, like, we want this thing to be smooth and cool. So instead of instant, we'd like it to move in. It could have a dissolve in, it's gonna be like a fade, or we can say move in. And we can say we want to move it in, and these are great, right? Because you can actually click them and get little previews of how they'll work. Will this thing kind of slide over from the right or the left? Or will it move in from the bottom? Let's just go with a simple move in from the bottom. We'll go back and try this out again. Pretty rad. Now it's a little slow for me, so I'm gonna go ahead and go down here and go to maybe like 150. Let's give that a try. Okay, that's pretty rad. Pretty rad. All right, so this is our first example of that. What I'd like to do now is I'd like to be able to do some kind of scrolling animations on this, kind of show off what that's gonna look like. Now, I don't want the header to scroll, but I do want this to scroll. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll bet you all know how to do that, but let's just go ahead and demonstrate it. So I'm gonna put in on this one, favorite cocktails. Now, I always like to work with some real looking stuff, so we're gonna come back here and just grab a few images for ourselves. Up, come in here, back to the app. All right, so on this one, we'll say recent, we'll add in a different image. Up, let's come on in here. All right, we had a problem. We actually clicked into this overlay because it was the first object in the stack. And so we're gonna come back up here and mess with our master. We did something wrong here. So on the overlay, let's just lock that layer. We don't really want people to mess with that layer. What we would like is to be able to get to that image. So let's click here again. I'm holding Command and clicking in. And I can see now that I've got my image perfect. I'm gonna just slam that image in here. You can actually see that it's stacking up here. Who knows what this thing would be called? Let's pretend as if it's a French 75. Great. And we can just add in a few images like that just to get an idea of what this thing is gonna look like. Now you can see I'm just going back and forth pretty easily now because I'm just copying those fills out. This is all dummy copy. This isn't stuff that we're gonna use in the future, but these are just an idea of what this app may look like. I wanna just give it a little bit of fun, jazzy content to make me feel real cool about my drinks. Ooh, what is this one? Let's just call it a breakfast mimosa. Now we could probably come in here. This happens a lot. As I'm designing a system and I'm like, I would love to be able to like have some kind of recognition on this as to whether or not I could favorite it. Normally, without components, I would be at a bit of a loss. I'd be in here. This is exactly what I'd be doing. I'd be over here like this. Oh man, I've got this heart. Okay, I know I got the heart. Awesome. I'm gonna go back to my apps. Maybe I'll type in assets and I'm gonna put in a heart. Hopefully I named it heart. Awesome. There it is. All right, and I'm gonna put it in here and then I'm just sort of like slamming these hearts all over the place. No, 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 no. We are not going to do that. What we are going to do is put that heart right here. We're gonna put it in the component because we want it everywhere. Who knows where we would put it? Maybe here. We can go ahead and move it in here. I have my nudge amount set to 8. We could also come in here and put a layout grid on this master component. So this is pretty cool, right? We can just come in here and say, I want an 8 pixel grid. I want to go ahead and maybe darken up that grid a little bit. And now you can see, lo and behold, that grid is alive everywhere, which is really, really handy. You can just keep those little grids stored in your components per component. Not all components need exactly the same grid structure. For instance, if I'm working on this and I have this single column 343 pixel wide grid, that's not gonna work for me. in here. Maybe this makes more sense to have an 8-pixel grid. So I'm going to take this grid and I'm going to turn it off, but I'm not going to delete it because I want that thing to be available in that component. You can see here I've also got it turned on in my icons as well. Okay, with the icon, what I'd love to do is maybe fill it with something. Oh, we do have, I did some trickery on this icon. You can see here that I did kind of the same thing here, where I've got this vector, it's masking off. That way I can put all kinds of weird, crazy different like strokes and everything in here. And this is a mask for a solid shaped thing above. The only thing I forgot to do there is that I didn't get this thing ready for prime time, which means I want to be able to lock the stroke, but I want to keep that filled area up there. So let's just go back and see what that may do for us. All right, so now when I select this, the first thing I hit is this fill, which is perfect because now I can adjust the fill of this thing. I think we might just go with a simple white. We may need to have some kind of a stroke around it. I'm not sure, but for now we'll just leave it. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and turn off grids because I'm getting a little confused here. All right, one thing I noticed is that this is not set to the upper right, it's on the left top, so this needs to be on the right top. And we can see here that these are a resized version of it, so I just need to make sure that everything responds accordingly. Let's just go check this out here. Is this on the grid? Let's go check out the round avatar thing. Boom, we turn it on. It's looking pretty good, except for it's not good there. But now, it's good. It's real good. And let's check this here too. Let's make sure that this is lining up exactly how we would hope it to. All right. And we're at bottom alignment. That's great. Now we might have to do some optical aligning here because this is technically, it's got to probably be a little bit more like this. In this case, the grid falls off. So we're just going to eyeball it here just for being quick's sake. All right, turning off grids again. Awesome. Here we are once again. I do feel like that text is a little tight in there. I might have to go in and adjust it just a bit, but we've got this. Now what we're trying to do is create a scrollable list of these items. And so I may have architected this wrong because I've got them all in these components, but let's just see what we can do. Now my first attempt at this, and I've never done this, never done it live on stream, never done it in life, is I'd like to be able to take these things to say that this cocktail row is actually a frame, but I'm going to take out the auto layout from it. The reason for that is because I'd like to be able to manually size this frame to actually be exactly the same size as this frame here. So I'm going to go ahead and manually size it there. And then next, what I'd like to do is I'd like to be able to see that this thing is extended past it. If I want to see where it's going, I can unclip the content for a second, just see where it's at. Okay, now what I would like to be able to do with this is I would like to be able to have the behavior of this cocktail row that it would horizontally scroll. Like I said, I've never done this, not in this way. So I could be horribly ashamed live on stream. One thing that I did realize is that this cocktail row with horizontal scrolling, it might actually make this also horizontally scroll. So I'm not quite sure about what I'll do there. But I'm going to make an attempt at just coming here on this header and say, fix the position when scrolling. I have no clue what I'm going to do, but we're going to try it. All right, so now we're here. We forgot that this has got a little bit of a buffer here, so whoops, my bad. Actually, that's not my bad at all. What we'd like to do is actually have the scroll, if you put your finger there, it should be able to work as well. So in reality, we should be able to have this thing be like this. So what we're gonna have to do is just adjust this component here and just bring it in by our spacing amount. All right, so everything's working fine here. Let's give this a try on prototype. Cross your fingers. I am not even sure how this is gonna work. Oh my gosh. So what I did there is I took a component, I made it a frame in a scrolling frame with a fixed child inside of it, and I just gotta hand it to Figma on this because that's awesome. It just worked out of the box. So this just works, but that means that it's because this behavior is locked into the component. What that means is I didn't even have to set scrollable regions up on each one of these. It's just awesome. I would love, if affordance of just having this half cut off card is plenty good enough. Plenty good enough. All right, let's continue. All right, so now what we'd like to do is make this app scroll vertically. Let's go ahead and just duplicate this tiki drinks thing and just let it go down. So duplicate it. Now, the cool thing here about this, one way to do this, instead of me always going and clipping, unclipping to see where this content is and if it truly created the content, another really good hint that I got from somebody the other day is just do Command Y for outlines, and now you can see what's happening in there. You can just toggle back and forth really fast to see what's happening. All right, this is perfect. Now, if I hit go on this, nothing happens. I can't scroll. So what I want to do here is I want to come to this parentmost frame, and I want to go ahead and say, in the prototype panel, go to vertical scrolling. Cool. That's great. But as you may think, it does exactly, like, this is the beauty of computers. They do exactly what you tell them to. So the problem here is that all my other stuff should not be scrolling, but I didn't tell it to. So let's just tell it to. And we learned this in the last step, which is let's take this little header item and let's just go over here in design. It's interesting that it's in the design panel. I feel like there's like this relationship between the prototype panel and the design panel such that like this fixed position when scrolling, it's in prototypes. So it makes me think it should be in there. Anyways, I get a little bit lost in time. Just remember that it's probably over here. Okay, I'm going to fix the position when scrolling here, but also nobody wants their menu moving away from them. Let's also fix the position when scrolling on that. Now let's just not even fire up the prototype again. Let's just keep this thing alive. This is awesome, right? I love that I don't ever have to like hit build or hit refresh or anything. I'm just going back and forth. How does it feel? How does it feel? Do we like this? When I tap that, do we like it? Kind of. All right. All right, let's go back here. Something I hated about this nav, and it wasn't this one, it was this one here. It has like a little bitty hairline down here, little gray line. Get that out of there. I don't want it. I don't believe in it. All right. All right. Nice. Digging on that. That's pretty cool. Now, I wasn't going to design in this aesthetic, but I did want to show something kind of interesting. If you ever like that effect where like the content scrolls up and it's blurring behind the menu. Ooh, how cool is that? That's so cool. That's this thing here. I'm going to go to my component and I can test this here, and I can even test it on this component instance. I don't need to go to the master component. I can just come on here, and what I want to do is just kind of detach this fill here, and I want to go ahead and change it to, actually, let's not even do that first. Let's first do the effect. Let's really get that effect in there. So what we're going to do, instead of a drop shadow, yuck, we would like a background blur. Now, if we layer blur it, it just blurs that layer. If we background blur, this is very cool. It's in web technology. It's in iOS. It's called a backdrop filter, and it basically says only do the blurring thing to the things behind this thing. So unfortunately, we can't really test it. Oh, yes, we can. I can just slide that up, and we can see that it's working perfectly. One thing that you might get hung up on this, I've got hung up on a million times, is that sometimes you might actually do this. Actually, I'll showcase it. Just like this. You might actually draw, let's say you're drawing a nav element over here, and you're like, awesome, I love this effect. I want to do a background blur. And you go up here to layer, and you're like, well, it's not blurred. It's what? Why is it not blurring? It's not blurring. What's wrong? I always get hung up on this. It's not the layer that you have to adjust the opacity. It's the fill. So once I adjust that fill opacity, you can see that those blurs are coming alive. We can test this sucker out live, see if we like it. Let's vote with the group. Do we like it? I don't know. Do we? Let's test it out in the prototype. And in fact, let's go a step further. Let's go here on this one, detach this. Let's put it at 70% as well, and put the layer blur, background blur effect on that. Boom. All right, obviously our blur is not enough. This is completely like, messing with my text. Let's bump that blur up. So kind of the thinking here is that you either bump the blur up or you either bump this blur up or you're gonna have to like make that background color more opaque. So what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna just try both. So we're gonna try that 28, and then on this one we're gonna try the opposite just to get a little bit of an effect here. So I'm gonna bump that up to like, I don't know, 90. So here's the difference in the effect. Come here, now we can see that you can still kind of make it out. In fact, I don't like this, that I can actually still read that text. That's gonna be harder for people to like consume. But on the bottom you can see it's just so dang blurred that that you can't see anything, right? It's just sort of like muted tones. So that's just a little tip if you wanna do that. I'm gonna go ahead and put in a solid, no way, I don't even wanna do that. I don't like it, but I wanted to showcase it. I know, I had my time in the sun. I had my time where I did that background blur thing. I did it on an app, I designed it. I was trendy. I admit it, I was trendy. Okay, background blurs are off. Blurs are off. Let's see, how does it work now? Oh, this is awesome. Gosh, I just got myself with water in the face. It's great. Okay, look, it's maintaining my scroll position too. What's so cool about this is that like I had this scrolled like this and then I did some updates and the prototype's still live and active and happening. All right, what's next here? Let's go back to our to-do list and see. We're like ride or die on this episode. We got to finish up the stuffs and we're ride or die. So I have to finish my to-do list today. All right, add to list. I'm not sure what that was. Nav selected state. Let's go ahead and demonstrate that. And let's demonstrate that with a prototype as well. Change the background. Did that. Focused input. We could definitely demonstrate that if we'd like. But let's go ahead and ask ourselves, what does this app look like when it's got a selected state on it? I don't want to do anything like super duper trendy on this. Like one thing is that the gold could be highlight. Like this could be that state, whereas this one here could be more like a subdued text state, something like that, or that, well, not that. I don't know if that's going to work well enough for me. I'd like this to be very obvious. Let's say you're making a drink. You've already had a drink. Like you got a nice little buzz going on, but like you need to be able to know, like this interface needs to be more usable than ever when you drink it. So coming on in here, I had a wild idea. Actually, we're just gonna go, and I love that suggestion that someone in the stream had, is like, we need to be able to edit inline. I love that. Unfortunately, we're going here to the components page, so we don't really get to see it inline and in context. One way that we could do this, though, if we really want to try something out and experiment, is that we can just take this and detach it. Please, everyone, don't cry out in judgment. I'm just detaching. I promise I'll never detach again. Oh yeah. Okay. So one thing that I ran into with this detachment here is that I probably ran into an issue. Whoa. Right now, if I draw this into here, you'll see that because it's in auto layout, it's a little tricksy because it's like trying to add it as I come in. So I'm just gonna bring this rectangle out above this thing. What I wanna do here is just say like, what does this look like? What if it was like a big wash of gold? Oh yeah, detaching for me is like, it's like a no-no. Because once you do that, you know you're going rogue, right? You're going off the beaten path. But when it comes to experimentation, I really like to be able to get free of the trappings of the component. A component never ever made a good master, and I adhere to that. I stick to that. Okay, so what we're gonna do is just come back in here, just by that divider. I'm gonna put this thing here, and I'm gonna toy with this using overrides. So I'm gonna try a fill here of like that. Like that's a really unique style here. What we could do here is like, I've never seen a big wash of this gradient like brick like that. That's really funky. All right, so now we're gonna come back in here. Now, because I have architected these in such a funky way, I'm gonna have to do this. All right, I don't know, what do we think? Do we like this? I don't know, this crowdsourced design over here. Do we like this? Okay, maybe a potential other style. I'm gonna just do a different style on this. It's like maybe it's got like a background color on it, okay. Maybe we go dark. Maybe we go pink. You can see that I have not thought this through in any way. The problem with this is that I want this to be really minimal, and I feel like it's not at all minimal. Okay, here's another potential style, is that you can do something like that. This makes my soul die, like, very slowly. I'm gonna go ahead and admit to you all today that I actually never designed this out ahead of time. I mean, it's the point of the show, but... Oh, I'm really... Okay, what if this line went like this? What if it was as tall as this? So 76... Okay, we're gonna say 76 on this. I'm just gonna drag it and let it... And then it got thicker. It was like 3 or something. What if it went on the bottom? Welcome to a very professional designer. You can see that it is very professional. To me, none of these things are feeling like an Art Deco-y style. Russmere says, why don't you make a new icon? Just like putting the olive out of the glass and put it on top of the glass. Or like it clinks. I think that's an awesome idea. The one thing I want to do is like, if you went away from the UI and then you came back to it, say like 15 minutes later after you were done making some drinks, would you know that you're in that area? I think that transition animation could help you know that, but I want to make sure that they actually know that. So I think I figured it out. Inside of my brain powers, I think I figured it out. What if we took this icon and I didn't actually set up my resizing correctly, so you can see here as I scale it down, it's not working at all. One way to fix this thing would be to come into here on this icon and say, instead of left top, we're just gonna go center or scale, and probably most realistically it would be scale. Now when I come back to this, you can see that it's scaling. That's fine, that works. Another way of getting past that system would be as if you hit K to go into scale mode and scaled like that. Well, we're gonna fly with this. We're gonna fly with this. I do love Russmere's idea of just like a clink, clink, like that would be so cool if it just kind of tipped over there. I don't think we're gonna have time on stream to demonstrate that, unfortunately. All right, so this is pretty good. Now, one other thing I think that we need to do is find a way to like subdue these things out. So let's do this. Let's go back into our nav, and I'm just gonna bring our learnings with us. I'm gonna make this item just a little higher. Oh, we're in scale mode. You can see what's happening in scale mode. We're gonna go back to this app. We're gonna see how tall was that? 62, beautiful. We're gonna go to 62. Now holding Option while I drag is gonna make it so none of those contents inside scale in the most annoying way. We don't want them to scale, don't do that. All right, we're gonna align this to the bottom. Now what we're gonna do for this is we're just gonna turn this off. So this one, boom, visibility's off for now. So it's not in everyone by default, it's only the current one. And then the next thing that we're gonna do in this component is that we want to make like a subdued state. What might that look like? Let's go figure that out in just a second. Now I do wanna show you how I made that nav bar. Once again, we're also going to resize. This is 62. This nav bar we now want to be 62 as well. So we're going to bring that down. I'm going to copy this component and then come here. Okay, remember we detached that one? Now there is a like a reattach instance thing. It's like a plugin. I haven't used it in quite some time, but you can absolutely do that. All right. Now we're going to recreate this nav. Remember we had my drinks. And we're going to type in here, we had, is this search? Let's see here. The other item that we had, which we threw it away. Oh, there it is, explore. Oh, we saved a version up there. Well, I'm not even going to show you now because I don't need it. It's all right here. All right here. I'm going to line it up and put it on the bottom. We're going to make sure we, of course, fix position when scrolling. One thing for y'all to know, if we double click in here, we can come in, we can see this icon, turn it on for that one. Now these here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna set it to our subdued text style. Boom. Now we'll change that text style. Right now it's not looking too subdued, but remember on these icons here, we use a masking technique. We're gonna set it to the same subdued text color. Now once we change that color, as soon as you get used to this style color system in Figma, it'll all make sense. All right, that's not too subdued. Let's go here, let's adjust that. I am going like that. Look at us. Now we can always test out later whether or not that's good enough contrast, but let's go ahead and do more because, all right, that's good. All right, so now we've got this set up, we've got this nav here, and we want to create a transition to another screen. Now our stream time's almost up. Yeah, sorry about that background noise. I happen to also be in COVID, and it's a great thing right now with the construction in the back. So sorry for that for all of you. I'd like to get one more thing off the ground before we get done with this. So let's demonstrate what the nav transition may look like here. So we'll go ahead and just duplicate this here. All right, we want to bring this one alive on tap, so we want to go to the Explore. Okay. All right. All right. Trying to think, I just want to pack in as much education as I can here towards the end of the stream. We've got this detail view coming up. I think maybe we should finesse that, make that look a little bit nicer. We've also got some drag interactions that we need to put in here, and I feel like we're running out of time. Yeah, Mr. Steven had a really good suggestion. He said we could also leave it out of the component to have the smart animate like a shifting effect from one icon to another. That's a really cool idea. I really love that. Yeah, one thing we could do too is this icon here could also like animate across the screen. That's really hard to do within components and auto layout and all that right now, because we're kind of in a system. But you could have it sort of whooshed over here like this. I think that could be really cool. One thing you could do too is like have the gradient background from this and create everything as like a mask and have that gradient shift over there. Somebody said like maybe we could do a radial gradient here to kind of show that. Let's just do probably the simplest one here that I'd like to try to explore is going to be like a shift from screen to screen. And the little arrow slider is going to slide over, and then at the same time this is going to fade out of this to this subdued color, and then this one's going to fade in. All right, so the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to take this accent color. I'd like it to be a little darker, so I'm going to go ahead. Remember, it's all in this style, so it's going to be great. I'm going to darken it just a bit here, and then on this light end I'm also going to darken it. Sorry about the background noise. I blame COVID on everything. and you can too. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. I'm thinking I'm gonna have to like detach this. It feels like it's gonna be too difficult to try to pull it off. Yeah, I think it is. So what we're gonna do is detach this just to show. If we don't detach it, there's gonna be some real trickery, and it's not gonna be great. It's not gonna be fun. Nobody's gonna be having a good time here. We're experimenting, so I think right now we wouldn't have this system if we weren't experimenting. So this is great. All right. So I gotta kind of think about, I think the easiest way I would do with like an easy way to like envision this animation would be that I would just envision the beginning and end states first. So I'm gonna detach everything. That means I'm detaching all of these nav items as well here. All of these nav items. I'm just gonna trash the one and then select the frame so it pastes in the same spot there. I'm also gonna come on that subdued text color and I'm gonna actually rip the brown out of it. I'm not really liking the brown in there. And let's go 25%. All right, so then the next thing I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna go ahead and get this Explorer to have those gradients in it. So boom. We're gonna go ahead and set this to that gradient. And then we're just gonna do the beginning and the end states. So we're just gonna assign this to the subdued text, going from one state to the other. Shouldn't be too difficult, right? Okay. And then the last thing that we're gonna do is I'm just gonna pull this out of this nav item. I don't want it to be within the frame at all. And actually that may affect this one with Smart Animate. So let's just display what it would be like in the frame. So if I start just dragging over, you can see what's happening. It's going to the other frame. What I can do is hold that space once again, boom, and I'm over there, which is great. Now the good thing is for some reason we didn't have clip content on. If we had clip content on, we wouldn't be able to see where it was going, but hey, that worked. We somehow stumbled into greatness, and I blame only myself for that. So now we have a beginning and an end state of this navigation. What we can do on this is just go to prototype. We can actually have this Explore tab and rig that up to where when you click it, it goes here. And we could say on tap, we want to go ahead and say navigate to, and then we'll go ahead and say Smart Animate, right? We want these sort of transitions between the two to be automatic. Let's also make it a little bit longer so we can see it. So let's give it a try. Oh, we've lost a few things. Let's fire back up that presentation mode again. Now let's see if it works. Oh yeah, great idea. We can't go back because we didn't rig it up over here. So let's just rig that handle up right here. Boom, we're going back again. The great thing about this is that Figma just figured out, oh, cool, you're going back. We're gonna just inherit all this like Smart Animate business. So look at this. Let's go to the Explorer, boom, boom. All right, we also rigged up the wrong handle. Why didn't anyone tell me? Rude. All right, and so we've got this here. Boom, my drinks, Explorer, my drinks, Explorer. I think that's delightful. I think it's really cool. That's so great, so great. So I think this is gonna wrap it up for us on our stream. We've got a lot of different things that we experimented, that we tried. We had a lot of fun. We got this thing working with a horrible background color. I'm gonna just change that because it's going to annoy the heck out of me. I can just click that prototype line. If you ever think in prototype that you have to start double clicking and getting down to that object, never fear. Just click the prototype line. It'll bring you right there. We're gonna go ahead and change that to a darker color, or really any color. Maybe we'll just white and blur it out a little bit. Unfortunately, right now with this background behind the overlay business, they will not let us do a blur there. So we would have to use Smart Animate to do something like that. Oh, look at that. Ain't that gorgeous? Feels better, looks better. Yep, it's great. All right, so we're gonna check this out. We're gonna see what we did. We're gonna go back here. Oh, what does the Explore tab look like? That's great. Explore would look something like this. Did these work? These worked. They're great. They're using components. What a cool trick. We used overlays and masking overlays. It seems like I've had some drink already. Unfortunately, no. I've just had water. I'm just a wild person. Anyway. We've got this vertical scroll working. I think another thing, oh, a crazy little artifact in there. I think another thing that we could do here now is that we could get that favorite interaction to work. Anyway, it's been awesome building this app. We didn't quite get to the finish line, but we had a lot of fun exploring and discussing techniques as we went along the way. And I really appreciate everyone kind of staying on board and checking this out with me. So thanks everyone for coming in. Appreciate you watching. And that's it for building in Figma on this end. Next week, we're going to start building in Figma again, and we're going to be doing something completely different. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Have a great, great night, great morning, great whatever